Good evening and welcome to Separated by Water, the podcast for fans of English teams on this side of the Irish Sea. My name is Colin Campbell. I'm a Tottenham Hotspur season ticket holder for my sins and my co-host Paul Gall. Paul, how are you tonight?
I'm good, Colin. I apologise in advance. I'm full of hay fever, so I'll be sniffing on my way through the episode. But anyway, we'll keep at it
Oh,
and we'll
well,
see how we go.
you're usually sniffing around something. Anyway, well, thanks for being here and we appreciate that. So we're just wondering, we're in the new season. Are you missing your football fix, or is the World Cup Championship and the imminent Ladies Euros, is it going to be enough for you to get you through? Who knows? But we're going to look at activity, early activity, must be said, in the transfer market, particularly with Forest and Spurs this week. We're going to do a wee bit of observation on the club balls, a few points, probably concern he wants to raise very early days. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. So, really to kick us off, Paul, I know you're suffering a wee bit, but I know you'll do your best. Said it's very early days in the transfer market, but Liverpool seem to be active, United, others. But tell us about Forest, okay? Their transfer activity.
Before
How's it
talking
going
about
so far?
Forest, City and Chelsea are spending money like it's going out of fashion. I
Yeah.
just don't know how the PSR thing is going to work for them. What can they sell next to get the money in? They're
Okay.
spent an
Well,
absolute
yeah.
fortune. They're
Yeah. Well,
spending a
we got
fortune.
2 minutes in. We got 2 minutes into the podcast before you mentioned Manchester City and financial fair play. So well done.
Yeah.
That was quite
Okay.
good.
Anyway, Forest.
Okay. Back to
Forest,
Forest.
like a lot of the rumors we have are as a result of Fabrizio Romano, and I'm starting to doubt whether he can be trusted or not in what he says. I used to have great faith in what he said, but I'm not so sure now. But anyway, what have we done? We were rumored to be signing three Botafogo players,
Mm,
Jesus,
mm.
Kobano, and Cunha. It seems now that the latter two have dropped off. We have signed Igor
All right.
Jesus. The yeah, the medical was done in America last week and he passed it. Or this week, sorry. He's expected to join
Mm-hmm.
after the tournament. They're finishing the tournament now. Um,
Yeah.
Botafogo beat. He scored one of the goals in the game against PSG. And watch this
Yeah.
guy, Colin. I've watched
Yeah.
them. I know the only reason it's the only reason I've watched any of the games in the Club World Cup is because they were playing, and I watched them. And he's a great centre of balance. You know, he seems to be able to dribble with the ball a bit.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to the front post where Chris Wood would go to the back post to score most of his goals. He's he's coming to us for 10 or 12 million. That's meant to be the story. The
Mm.
three of them were linked to be 22 million altogether. He plays a physical game. A guy that he'll wrestle for the ball at the front post. And that's how I see him. Now, I don't know. I don't know if you've seen any of him or.
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing a wee bit of research myself and anticipation on Yeyu or Yeyu. I heard that he's likened to Carlos Tevez for people, obviously. Tevez was, of course, a great player for West Ham, Man United, and City. And it says that he maneuvers like him with his back to with the goal he's attacking, a wee bit like Dalglish. It said he will try to get across the centre back and challenge him. Point you made there that may suit the Premier League. Another point you made there is I'm saying about people, will they be there to play with Wood or instead of him? And you mentioned this front post back potential relationship.
I think
That
he said,
sounds quite good, I think.
yeah, I think initially I thought he's going to be a good replacement for Wood. But if we
Mm.
played two up front, I can see how the two would bounce off one another. Especially the way he goes in at the ball. Um, whether that's what Nuno has in mind, I don't know. I really don't know. The Cunha guy, the central defender, he that we were meant to be getting, he's an exciting young player. Comes with high praise. I was listening to Botafogo podcast the other night. There's an English guy talks on it, and he says that there'll be a big loss, a massive loss to them if they go. But then today we're linked with, or apparently the deal's done with Malik Fofana, who I didn't know. I know he plays for Leon, and as you know, Leon have been very under
Yeah.
financial issues, so they're going to be raped and pillaged for players, I think. And yeah,
Mm.
yeah, but it's a busy. We've had a very quiet time so far in the transfer market. But what I will say is, what's more promising is that we're not selling players. Like Alanga's
Yeah.
been linked now. Alanga's been linked to Newcastle. 3 bids have been put in for him, and Marinakis is saying, "Go away, he's not for sale." And I'm not so sure it's that they're looking for more money. I don't think they are looking for more money. I don't think they want to sell, but there will be a magic figure where they go, "We have to sell him at that money," you know. And I just hope they don't get there. I hope that Newcastle don't get there. But I don't understand Newcastle. That's not their market. They don't go in and spend big money on players either. So I don't really understand it unless they see Alanga fitting in very tightly with what they're doing.
Well, they might. I mean, the interesting point you made there, Newcastle would consider that they have been restrained by the financial, whatever they call them, rules, and that given their Saudi owners, they could have, or allegedly,
Yeah,
they could have spent a lot of money more
yeah,
quickly than they did. However, they went with the developmental model under Eddie Howe. What interests me there is that, and perception's a big thing in my world. If Forest perceive themselves to be a top 6, top 8, top 10 club, okay,
yeah,
they're in the same tier really as Newcastle. So they don't want to be losing players to Newcastle. You know what I mean? If a City come in, or even go down to Liverpool come in, you maybe see that slight difference in the elite. But the Newcastles, the other teams, I think, it will be interesting in terms of owner sees for us now. And it's interesting what you said, that it may be that there is no price. He simply does not want to sell and won't. And that would be a very good statement of intent for the future
yeah.
for Forest.
I think to answer your question as much a statement as it was a question, I think Forest
Yeah.
are, I think Forest are aiming to stabilise themselves in the top 10. Um, I think you said to me earlier on there, it's an important season for them. It could be a very difficult season for them.
Yeah.
What worries
Yeah.
me is that Nuno wants to keep a small squad. Uh, he wants a small squad so he can manage it better. But we need an
Mhm.
array of players to cope with 50 games. We could potentially play 50 games in the season, with Europe.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Outgoing, I don't know. I think
Well,
Marinakis has an
just let
ambitious
me,
outlook for Nottingham Forest.
before you go out, and I want to ask you about outgoing. I had said a few weeks ago on, I think, a Forest related podcast that this is a crucial season for it. This could be a future defining season. And it will be about how, not only about how they perform, but how they see themselves now in the world. And certainly the owner seems to have a lot of ambition. Now, what I had said was maybe with all the, and at that time it seemed like a trainload of young South Americans and others coming in. Forest, in my opinion, also needed one, possibly two, older hands to steady the ship. Somebody with a lot of Premier League experience.
Do you know? Did you? We're linked with Jordan Henderson. I
Well,
don't know. Again,
okay.
again, it's Fabrizio Romano that said this, that there's
Yeah.
Jordan Henderson, 35-year-old. I know you think we need. I'm not sure we need to sign that player. I went off him. I went off him when he was doing the LGBTQ
Yeah. Yeah.
rights thing, and then he disappears out to Saudi. That sort of, it made no sense to
Yeah.
me, and it sort of turned me off the guy, to be honest. It made a bit of a fool of
Yeah.
himself. But do we need somebody of that
Well,
experience? I'm not sure we do. Or that
okay.
particular guy. I take your point that you need somebody of experience. Like who do you bring in with experience that
Well,
can contribute
I'd,
on the field?
I'd mentioned a couple. I mean, I'm not saying that, you could maybe say, well, so and so, Frederick are both not already in that position. But, the players who are sort of currently appear to be available, Vardy up front. I think Vardy doesn't need, he'll be fit to do what he does, but he doesn't need to win the marathon. I still think he's there for a season at least. What's going to happen to Grealish? There's a guy who really should be getting his act together. There's a World Cup coming up. Who knows? I just have a feeling that maybe Forest would benefit from that in this future defining season as I painted the picture. But that's me sitting on the outside looking in. I applaud
Yeah,
everything that I've done.
I take your point. I don't think Grealish. I don't think Grealish is the massive wages. So I don't think Forest are going to bring that in and have him sitting in the corner of massive wages and younger
Yeah.
guys who are contributing and have been there for the last couple of years on lesser wages. And I don't think they want to divide the dressing room like that. But who knows? I do.
Okay.
I will predict one thing, and then I'm going to who's
Yeah.
gone out, who's left. I'll predict one
Yeah.
thing. On the last hour of the last day of the transfer window, Forest will sign 3 players. There are 2 or 3 players, something like that. There'll be some mad rush at the minute. Now it seems to have come alive
Okay.
today with the announcement that
Okay.
we're also Nico Williams has signed a continuation of his contract. He was a great signing from Liverpool. Just didn't cut it at Liverpool, and he gives everything. He's the Welsh
Yeah.
international. You see him play. He plays with
Oh
grit.
yeah.
He plays with determination, commitment. He just,
Oh yeah.
and he had to fight for his position this season. He had to fight very hard for it, alongside Murillo and co. Anyway,
Mhm.
sadly, our Irish guy is gone. Oma Badeli has left. He's gone to Strasbourg, undisclosed fee.
Okay, that's
Um,
Emerald Eye. Okay.
yeah, he was one of our
Well then,
Harry
okay.
Toffolo, who was Harry
Right.
Toffolo, who was he loved Forest. He was really well accepted in the community. He's gone. Jonathan Panzo's gone. Wayne Hennessy, goalkeeper, he's gone. He's released on the
Golly.
30th. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we've a few going out, but there's loads of rumours about who we're linked with. I don't know. I'm starting to get very cynical about the rumours and that
Well.
go on and everything. As I said, Jordan Henderson.
Well. Okay.
Don't know.
How would you classify? In very early days, but how would you classify food? Are you happy? Are you sad? Or are you indifferent at the moment?
Well, I'm glad that we're not making a laughing stock of ourselves by going out and scattergun approach and buying 30 players and people sending me
Okay.
videos or pictures of 3-story buses to hold it. I'm glad we're not doing that. I would like to. I take your point about the experience. I think it would be good to get somebody in with a bit of experience, but as long as they don't come in with a match of ego that's going to divide the dressing room. I think Nuno has a very nice environment for the players to work in,
Yeah.
and they all, even if they're off the bench, I've mentioned this before, if they're off the bench or on the bench, not going on, they appreciate and they realise the importance of coming off
Yeah.
the bench, and they're not falling out with one another about not playing.
Yeah.
But we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's
I
a
take
slow
your point,
approach,
Paul.
and I think it's
Probably.
maybe better.
Yeah. What I would be saying about this experienced player that I'm talking about, nobody in particular, but I have mentioned names. It would need to be someone who hasn't got, with something to, and who will show a bit of leadership in the changing room as well, and have something to prove. So they're not going to pose in big salaries. Probably this kind of thing will be arranged through the owner club paying, part of that salary. There could be a loan involved, and I'm not advocating for anyone. I just think in terms of when I hover over the Forest squad per se, and what business they've done so far, I do think somebody in there. I think I love Chris Wood to bits. I think he will need help to get the goals. Now, whether that's somebody to play with him or somebody to play instead of him, it could be both. You could have 2 people. Yeah. But let's see how that goes.
Did you watch any of the? Did you watch any of the England under-21 final?
No, I saw a bit of it. I just clashed with a few other things. I kept a foot of it or kept abreast of it with the phone. One thing I find is, even Lee Carsley, maybe I've said to you, when we were doing some prep, England can't translate that into the full team. That they have a very successful under-21 setup, and it just doesn't seem to move up on the conveyor belt to the next level,
If you take it there, like Morgan Gibbs White, to pick a Forest player, he won the European Cup, the under-21 European Cup, with England the last time. Lee Carsley doing it twice in a row, that's not a coincidence. To win with a separate group, a different
No.
group of players, with a different group of players. There's something there, and I think maybe he is the better option for England as a manager than Tuchel. We'll wait and see. Um, Tuchel will get his 18 months. If he doesn't win the World Cup, it'll be history, and we'll move on to the next one. Um,
Oh, yeah.
Elliot Anderson, the Journey Maradona, they call him. What a championship he had! What a competition he had! And he is. And I know Anthony joked about it that whenever he said he was on with us about coming from Newcastle.
From
What a
Newcastle, yeah.
player he has turned out to be! That guy is going to be world class. He is a
Yeah.
midfielder that can do just about everything. And this isn't adverse to taking a shot at the goal either, you know. So I'm delighted he's with us. I'm hoping he's going to stay with us. He's signed with us until 2029, which means that we'll get hopefully
Wow.
another couple of years out of him and make good money on him.
Yeah.
You know, so and that he came as a result of Newcastle having to sell on PSR.
I
So
know. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah. What about Spurs? Tell me about Spurs. What's happening with Spurs? And I know you maybe have done a lot of
Well,
business.
the point about England, I'm not an England hater. I enjoy any of the teams from these islands doing okay. You know, England to me are a mystery. And I watch all these talented players, and I feel there's a sort of, they're disjointed between defence, midfield, and attack. It's like they've only been introduced, and they don't seem to have that fluidity. You know, it seems
Yeah.
that, you know, no matter who the Germans pick, they all seem to know what they're doing. You know, the French decades, the Spaniards even more recently, you know, and even the smaller, so-called smaller teams, you know, England have this potential, but just whatever happens, they don't seem to be able to realise it. And I'm not sure. Harry Redknapp had a view. I never got the chance. But that's, you know, that's not really our brief here. But it is in the sense that if there are players playing for either of our teams, or because Archie Gray had a great championship as well. Big shout to him. However, Spurs, yes. I just like to say that it was 6 weeks ago we won the Europa League. I'm still on a high from that. Danny Kelly, one of the contributors to Talksport, amongst other things, said that it was only when we won the trophy that we realised what a burden we'd been carrying as Spurs devotees,
Yeah,
17
fair,
years
yeah.
without anything. And why am I mentioning that? Well, then, you know, that honeymoon, of course, like all honeymoons, come to an end. And there's nothing like a good old dose of Daniel to bring us to a dull thud. So I said I had been in appointment. I use the word intrigued deliberately, because I think he could be one of two things. He could be a manager who comes and we find him to be sadly out of his depth. Or he could be the one who, given the tools, given the opportunity, given the support, will flourish and really make things happen. And where are we in a minute? I don't know. Why do I not know? Well, he hasn't been very frank himself, forthcoming in what he's doing. His statements have all been very, very good so far, but they've been very concerned, you know, trying to keep us all nice and happy. Spurs transfer activity. Tell, it's been signed now, the French wonder kid, so we were told. I don't know. Danso came in at centre back, and
Was a
he's
big tall
staying.
guy signed for you? Big, was he an Asian guy or Chinese or
The Japanese, yeah,
yeah,
Kota
Japanese guy?
Takai from Kawasaki,
Yeah.
as I'm sure you know. Yeah, and
Did he arrive on a
what
Kawasaki?
can I
Did he?
tell you about on Mountain Kawasaki? I don't know. Allegedly, I mean, from what little we've been able to get, I was listening to someone who knew a little bit about Japanese football. He is a household name there. He's very, very good, very, very tall, and
Excuse
despite
me.
that, if you will, good with his feet. He's coming to join the squad, not be loaned out, which is interesting for Spurs. We'll wait and see. Romero, talking about position, I think, in my opinion, he's going to Atletico Madrid. That was always in the cards, and I think they suit each other, frankly. The way Atletico play, sometimes they fancy the dark arts. And I love Romero. He will always have a place in my heart because of his performance, most parts of his performance, and being a member of that team. But he's always a red card waiting to happen. And, you know, I wouldn't be crying down in the ditch or crying my eyes if he did move. if the price was right, and we're going to do something about it. Kudos from the mention of it. Yeah, it could be good. Yeah, 85 million buyout clause. But it appears both sides are willing to do business at a lesser sum. And then you see the Crystal Palace player. What's going on there? That looks like a typical Spurs non-move. It was one set of the Labour Party. I go 50 years ago. See, they manage often to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yeah.
And it kind of do things on it. They look like they're just about it, and then they don't.
Yeah.
And we do need strengthened. And at the minute, it's frustrating. Now, very early days, people said, don't worry, it's only January the 1st. There's X number of days to go, blah, blah, blah. But the pool of talent that you really want will go quicker than the rest. And unless we're waiting at the end to see who's left, like when you were younger, picked on there's only 3 or 4 of you left, you two over there and you two over there. You know what I mean? Is that what we're going to do?
Last. I was always second last to be picked.
Yeah.
Here, just before we continue with that, if you're in the comment section, just throw us in a comment and we'll talk about it, about your team and what transfers are doing. Please like the video and let people know about it. So throw a comment and we're happy to talk about it. Sorry, Colin, go ahead.
No, you're okay. I mean, from my point of view, am I happy, sad, or indifferent about our activity so far? I'm probably verging on sad, but I might not really. Although I did hope whenever Daniel came out, and it's Daniel now, came out and said about Ange being relieved of his duties and said he wanted to win the Champions League and he wanted to win the league and he wanted to win the Grand National and the British Open, and the World Poker Championships. I thought, okay, but it's the how. They talk about strategy. How do we do that? Well, we'll have to do it with a squad of players who are better and bigger than we currently have. How that goes, but Thomas, please step up.
If I want to talk about who's leaving you, is Son heading out? Is he gone or is he staying? Or
well, last time you asked me, I had said he would go, so I can't really change my opinion on that. I think the emotional, the would say, I'll stay for another year, whatever it is, and seeing the new players and doing all that. I understand that, and if he were to stay, I'd be very, very happy. Even go take a big pay packet and go to the Middle East or whatever it is. I would also understand that too.
Yeah, and did I read? I know you read all sorts of stuff at the minute, but did I read Harry Kane's link with coming back?
Okay, yeah, that may happen someday, but what do you say? I don't think that should be a major part of our strategy going forward if we're really serious,
What is your strategy? Sorry, I have to push you there. What is Spurs' strategy? Forest go to South America. We go to Corinthians. We go to Botafogo. We've brought in players from South America, and we have a strategy. We buy them to sell them, use them for a few years.
Yeah.
Spurs, I can't identify what Spurs' strategy is. What are they? What is their plan? How are they going to do it? What are they trying to do? Where are they getting the players? I don't know.
Well, for those of us who look into it, it's there's the old saying: if you're not confused, you don't understand. And that is the strategy might be more to do with balancing the books, frankly, than what's on the pitch. Otherwise, we would. I've used the term in the past: make some statement signings, 2 or 3, and really get up there and see what they can do for us. Because I think that only the blind couldn't see what potential Tottenham has as a massive club. The people who got there to support them in Bilbao, who got over to London to support them there, all over the world. And bear in mind, this is a team, all few other teams have a bigger support base. And those are teams who are regular serial winners. Spurs have not been, and yet they have this massive fan base who deserve to win more, deserve to be satisfied more, Our strategy, I think, to recap, I think sits more in the balance books than on the playing pitch, because I can't see where our strategy is. It seems to be we pick the odd player out or we make bids for players at the last minute, knowing we're not going to make it, or we negotiate a player until he or she gets fed up, or he will. Tottenham men's team, he gets fed up, or a better deal comes in, somebody snipes in at the last minute. That's happened before.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't think it's good enough. But what I need at the minute is to hear what Thomas Frank's doing. They could maybe amaze us all Spurs fans, and leap into action. Maybe a couple of Brentford players do come our way. Maybe there are others, but at the minute, it's not good. Feel we're being left behind.
Okay. I meant to mention one other thing. I don't know if you've seen it, but Forest have got planning permission to develop the. I think it's Peter Taylor stand. I'm not sure, but it's a proper development, 130 million, I think, which shows great statement of intent from Marinakis again. But I would love to know how he's attracted players. I know the European competition, whichever it's still going to be because it's undecided, which is ridiculous. It should be decided by now. Let Crystal Palace stay in it. Leon are gone now, and let it be done. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, likes of Malik, what's his name? Malik Fofana. I know nothing about him, I have to confess. But Liverpool and Chelsea were in for them. How are Forest managing to convince players to come to them? That's the bit I don't understand. So Marinakis must have a big hook there to be bringing them in with. He must have some means of telling them what their plans are, what their ambition are to get them over Chelsea or Liverpool.
Well, sometimes, short of the trophies or the almost certainty of winning trophies, some players are more impressed by being told that they're guaranteed first 11 or thereabouts.
Yeah.
Whereas in the other teams, they're obviously not. And that may appeal to them in the first few years. And what could be said to them is, look, you come to us, you'll be in the first team or the first 14, you will play regularly, you'll find your feet, you'll do well, and then if a really major, big, massive club, bigger than us, comes in for you, you'll be an established figure. What Forest get from that for developing that player, that's another way. Another is that some players are born, buy into the project. If the owner and the manager can say, well, over the next 3 or 4 years, 5 years, we're going to achieve A, B, and C, and they're very winning and convincing in their way, players could also get into that. There are other ways. Otherwise, 1 or 2 teams will have every player available. So I think for me on the outside, I think there are a couple of things. Momentum, and that's been created largely, I think, by your owner and by putting his money where his mouth is. Also by the good season and by the good press that Nuno has had. And the fact that he's signed a new contract suggests stability, and as much as a contract ever will, I don't think...
The dog agrees again this week,
Yeah. No, she hears one noise and barks for half an hour. She's away out there. Forest should be and look like, and next season will prove it. Hopefully, they're a club on the up, and some players will just like that idea of being there. Here's hoping.
Okay, slightly off subject, and then we'll talk about the Club World Cup if we have to.
Sure.
Who do you see in trouble next year? Who do you think? Do you think the 3 that come up will go back down again, or do you think there's other teams are going to be sucked down into that relegation position? I ask that because I see Brentford. I believe Brentford are going to be in trouble.
Looking at the 3 clubs who have come up very briefly, because that's important in the thing. I think Scott Parker's done a great job with Burnley, and he changed their style. They came up with cavalier attitude under Company and went straight down. He's made them nearly impossible to beat, nearly impossible to get a goal against. And if they can maintain that next season, they might stay up. Leeds have to stay up, really. You know what I mean? And I think that they will do their best. Sunderland, I would worry about it, and I know they bought a couple of players. I'm just not sure. In terms of the meat of your question, so that's 2 who could stay up, is what I'm saying, of those 3. Okay. Where do you go after that? Well, I would worry about 2 teams particularly. Brentford could be that team that are cherry-picked and can't get it together in time to stay up. It's been seen by some as a very, very risky appointment, Keith Andrews, Martin, that way. And I'm just not sure. I worry for Brentford. And I think it's been a very good addition to the Premiership. They've been an honest team, good to watch. But I think you're right. I see trouble there. I also see trouble for Wolves. They got away from the bottom last year. But I just think they've lost one or two. Hard to know how they will go. Bournemouth have lost players. All of that lovely group of teams, have done. It's how they replace them. But my two for concern are Brentford and Wolves.
Yeah, I think the teams coming up. I see Leeds, especially with the backing of the 49ers consortium, the group. I think they'll spend money. I think they'll spend money to keep them up. They've a massive fan base, and we'll get Michael back on, and we'll get Crooksy on maybe in a couple of weeks'
Yeah.
time, and let us know what's happening, the rumours there, and see what they're saying about whether Leeds are doing business on the transfer market. Are they keeping players, or just what their intent is,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
see if this consortium, this group that brought them over, are making a difference. Um, it, I believe Bournemouth have the money. I think they've got the manager, the ownership model is very good.
Yeah.
I've heard him interviewed on various different platforms, and I think
Yes.
he's very good. I think he knows what he's doing, and I think they'll be okay. Wolves and Brentford were the two that have slipped down. I think Leeds will be okay.
Mm.
I'm not so sure about Sunderland, as you say, although I look forward to the derbies between Newcastle and Sunderland. They're always great spectacles
Mm.
to watch. Yeah, I just thought I'd throw that question in there because I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I hope and I pray that we're safe and we don't
Mm.
run out of steam. I think we're okay. I think if we keep the players we've got to a certain extent and buy in more, I think we should be okay. I think we'll be all right.
Well, here's a question for 17th and the European Conference Cup, or whatever it's called. Would you take it?
17th.
Mm.
Yeah, I would take
As we
17th.
did,
Yeah, I would take that, but I don't think there's
and win the
any
cup.
chance of that happening. I don't think. I think we
Uh,
we might we might
I
do
know.
well in the Conference League, but I still think we'll finish top 10. Um,
Yeah.
I really
Okay.
do. And what about
Okay.
you? Would
Okay.
you take Champions League and 17th, winning the
But
Champions League?
to win the Champions League,
Yeah,
to win the Champions League, actually, I'll take your hand. Yeah,
yeah, but there's a
absolutely.
caveat to this question. There's a caveat
What's
to this
that?
question. Would you take 18th and winning the Premier, winning the would you take relegation with winning the Champions League?
It's worth a thought, because you just come back up again and you've won the Champions League. Nobody can take that away. A season traveling to
We've got two of
Bristol,
them.
and so mightn't do us any harm. The Champions League, I think. And I'm not a great lover of the Champions League, but I know I'd love us to win it. It's going that way. So yeah, okay.
Right. We'll talk about this.
But that gets us back in the Champions League in the following year, So
So there's one for you. Why, if Leon are relegated, does that take them out of the Europa League?
Because what it's saying is that they qualified for that on their position in the league.
Yeah.
Didn't they? And they no longer are in that position. Right. Because they've been put down the bottom of the league. So the bottom league, so they're not fifth or third anymore. You know what I mean? I think it's a matter of that. Whereas if Spurs won the Champions League and went down, as winners of the Champions League, they have the right to defend it. But let's not. People might tune in just right now and hear me talking about Spurs winning the Champions League on the Sauvignon Blanc. So, whatever. Okay, Mr. Galt, the Club World Championship, the thrills and spills.
Come on, Colin. You have to agree with me. You have to agree with me that this is a joke. The whole thing is a joke. Right.
No, I'm not going that far.
they're Americanizing their game. I said it last week. I'll say it again. Bringing individual players out one at a time and bringing them out and standing about. I, I just think they're trying to. They're trying to. The Premiership. They made an announcement now. They're going to be doing player interviews at half time. They want to have cameras and sound in the changing rooms at halftime. They want managers to be interviewed at halftime. Come on, it's just Americanized, sensationalized in every aspect of our game. Our game's been good. People have watched it for generations and are
Yeah.
happy with it. It's time to stop. And this competition. I look forward to seeing how Chelsea and Man City's players do after not having a break, really playing right through and playing an additional whatever, 6 or 8 games or whatever it was. Man City went out last night to Al
Yeah.
Hilal,
Yeah.
which is a big
Yeah.
surprise. I'm surprised at that one. But
Yeah.
anyway, I don't. I just think it's a joke. I think it's UEFA or FIFA or whatever it is trying to make more money and
FIFA.
trying to get more revenue raised. Now, the only good thing about it is Chelsea. If Chelsea go another round, I think they get 90 odd million for getting a further into it. Now that money will come in handy. It'll sign for 2 of the big signings, you know.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's
that
what I'm saying.
aspect of it, that aspect of it's fine. But I don't know. I just think it's ridiculous. They're talking about making it biannually. So every 2 years instead of every 4 years, they're going to be doing it, which I just don't see them getting. Take that competition away from America, and where's the numbers going to come from? Put it in Central Europe. Are people going to
You mean
travel over
the?
to Central Europe? Yeah, if you don't have it in America where it is at the moment, is it Atlanta or LA or wherever it is?
Well, have
If
it
you take it
across
away,
a number of cities. Yeah.
yeah,
West Coast and East Coast. Hence the time, the different times. You mean if they held it in a different continent, how would it do in different
yeah,
in different
yeah,
countries? I have no idea, but I know in FIFA they'll probably hold it in the Middle East at some stage, or Africa somewhere, or wherever they'll find. Their longer term goal is to find places in the developing football world to play this thing.
yeah,
Now I did feel that way, but the ever excellent Martin Samuel in the Sunday Times, somebody had a view on it. He said the attitude to the Club World Championship maybe highlights the almost superior attitude that we in Europe have about our football, about our players, and also then the attitude we have towards the South American game, particularly. What he's saying is we can turn our noses up at, but the South American fans comparatively have turned up a number, be the
yeah,
Argentinian or Brazilians. And that's despite the fact that, go back to your earlier point inadvertently when you're talking about Igor Yeyu and all these people being bought, their teams are being picked off. And it used to be that, players only came across when they were, I've used the term, oven ready, they played a few years and were established. Now you're going at young guys who are very, very, hardly, they're being bought on potential rather than delivery,
yeah,
on the world stage. So what he's saying is that knocked us down a notch or two. And that was before Inter had been beaten and City had been beaten. So I can see all sides of it. I think that sometimes in life, some things are inevitable. A
yeah,
world championship of soccer, that's what it'll be by then, is inevitable. And money talks, or as Bob Dunn said, money doesn't talk, it yells. And that, years ago when a team won the FA Cup, you only talk about the FA Cup, you didn't talk about what they're getting for it.
yeah,
But you quite rightly and quite appropriately have mentioned the money of getting to various stages and what that does. So that's why they'll be out there. I hope that
I actually
UEFA,
checked up.
who
Remember when
I'm no
Charlie
fan
was
of
on with
them,
us? He said that
yeah,
this, for seventh place it was something like 50 or 60 million. It was 156 million for seventh place for winning.
are you sure?
I
I
think
mean,
so. I
it's
think
massive money.
it's crazy.
At some stages, it may as well be 156 billion. But I heard
I'll
that
look into
Auckland
that for next
City,
week. I'll
yeah,
I'll have the prize
let's
money
do that. Okay.
for the Premiership. I'll
Because
have
we'll
that
be
up for
further
next
down
week.
the road and we'll know who's there. Auckland City from New Zealand allegedly were getting 2.5 million. but that would have allowed them to win their league for the next 100 years.
Yeah.
I think some of it's being split amongst the other teams. And what it can start to do is create a in each respective league,
Yeah.
whereby teams that are making that amount of money can never be caught. Now, do FIFA care about that? I'm not sure, because they're looking at a different stage. They're looking at this romance of a South American giant playing a European giant in North America, or in Saudi Arabia, or in wherever it may be after that, So, or God knows, in the future, China. And they will dress that up as developing the world game in third world football countries. I don't mean necessarily third world economic countries, third world. And they can dress that up as part of their vision. Yeah, and I can see that, but I don't necessarily buy into it, because I don't buy into much that FIFA do. Our brief here in Separated by Water is the Premier League, and we want it to be as good a product as it can possibly be. And there are certain things, as people talk about, are warning lights for me about where this FIFA World Championship could take us. But it will be reviewed, and we'll see what happens at the end of it. But let's come back on that one with some more details about winnings, and I'll do a wee bit of research on the clubs.
And I'll do the Premiership as well. What I'm going to do this week, Colin, is I'm going to send a message out to each of our contributors and just let them tell us what's going on with their teams. I might even do a quick interview with a couple of them and see if they want to do an interview with me, and we can slot that in. Just a couple of minutes interview just about players coming in. So, okay, we chatted through things there. I'm to close. I'm optimistic about Forest's transfer market. I think we will do some good business. I think we're bolstering up a good team, keeping players that we didn't want to lose. Morgan Gibbs-White, I thought he'd have been gone before last season. We managed to keep him, and thus far he's staying for this season. I think you made a point earlier, and I think that's how we're keeping Morgan Gibbs-White. If he goes to Chelsea, Liverpool, or Man City, he's not going to be guaranteed to play every week. So he'll be a small fish in a big pond. He's a big fish in a small pond at Forest, and he's getting to the team's sort of been built around him, and I think that suits him. And I think he can see how he can develop his game and be noticed, be recognised, and push on in his England position, because I think he will be. If by the way, if Thomas Tuchel doesn't, and this isn't me talking because it's a Forest player, if Thomas Tuchel does not play Elliot Anderson in the World Cup, he's a fool. I tell you, that guy is sensational. Sensational. He's world class. They call him Jordi Maradona. I'm astounded by his player. He's fantastic. He really is. He's good. Anyway, anything else to add before we go?
Yeah. No, except I hope Thomas is listening, and I hope Morgan Gibbs-White, his agent, isn't listening.
Yeah.
I think he'll stay. I hope he stays. But I would say one thing: beware the Ides of Manchester City.
Yeah.
I think they have at least one transfer sting in the tail. Come.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Okay, Paul. Thank you, and thanks for battling through your.
I just want to say, for those that we weren't here last week, but Colin and I were here last week, sitting in the same seats we're sitting in, and I can tell you now, it would have been a 3-hour podcast that would have ended up with you not understanding one word we were saying, because there was white wine consumed by copious amounts. I woke up on Wednesday morning with a headache and a half, Colin. Oh my God! But it was a good chat. It was a good crack.
Oh, we were brilliant. We were both brilliant.
Yeah, we were.
we solved everything.
Solved everything. It was good crack. It was good crack. Okay, anybody who's watching, please like, share, throw us in a comment even afterwards during the week. Throw us a comment, and we'll happy to talk about anything you have to say. We'll contact a few of the contributors, and we'll talk about everybody else's club, not just Forest and Spurs. Next week, we'll talk about other teams like Liverpool. I've just got a message from Tim Sullivan there about us wiping their eye with Malik Fofana. So they're not used to that happening. But anyway, we'll talk to one another. And okay, thanks for that, Colin. And we will talk to you soon. Stay safe, everybody. And thanks for watching.
Cheers.
And we'll chat to you soon.